Hi, how are you?
It's just the clock is
So we're all here.
No,
You get rid of nameplates, can we all?
nameplates are only for the formal and informal. I believe.
No, I thought you always had nameplates.
Not that special. I mean, you
I
could,
meing, they're over there if you really
you
want.
could, you could make your own nameplate.
If you forget. Uh-oh.
There you go.
I think that's illegal. That's
Tom,
impersonating a public official.
Oh,
There's gotta be a code against
there
that.
are things happening in this chamber
Speaking of open meeting law.
that are somewhat untoward.
So we're all here. I think we'll begin with roll call. The meeting is in session now. Who's taking minutes tonight?
It's Linda.
Is she there?
Yep.
Is Linda up?
Yep, Linda's right there.
Hi, Linda. So we're going to start with roll call.
I think we just introduce
Ronnie,
ourselves. Ronnie.
there, Margaret,
Art.
Theo.
and Ryan is on video. Tom Pietro's here and Crystal Peck is here. I think that's it. So I do want to talk about the minutes, Linda. I'm not seeing, I don't know if you sent them to us, but I'm not seeing the minutes from 5/11 or 6/1.
They
Sorry,
they're posted.
we haven't reviewed them. Do you know, can we get them to review and approve, get them posted? I haven't been able to locate them.
They're not in the legal
They're not in the
committee
document.
section.
No,
Could they have been uploaded to the common council section
Yes.
and not
so
the
I
legal
think
committee?
we,
Okay.
just in terms of process, I think we need to see them and approve them in case we have any amendments. So can we get them? And then that way we can review them at the meeting, approve them, and then have them posted.
Sure.
And ideally, I'd like to see them in if you want to put them in the common council, that's fine. But I think it's much easier if they go into, as well, the legal committee document folder.
They are on the legal committee page right now.
I'm not seeing them, Tom.
They weren't earlier, Tom.
Under minutes, go to legal committee.
I'm sorry. You're right. You're
Well,
right.
they weren't earlier today.
Thank
They are
you.
there now, that's fine.
Sure.
Can you say that again, Art?
So sorry, Tom. I see 4/6 and 5/11 under minutes.
No, I wanted you to say you're right. Just kidding.
Earlier.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So we will not review those this evening because we haven't had time.
And secondly, just to clarify, draft minutes can be posted before they're approved. But, you still might want to approve them.
We do need to approve them. We need to review them and approve them. So we will review those at our next meeting. This evening, we had received some documents from Crystal, and she's going to go through those on the fourth item in the agenda. But what we really needed to look at tonight to discuss is the open meeting law, the local law, and particularly the policy related to the open meeting law. These were presented to us at the last Common Council meeting. So I know there have been a number of questions, not just from people on this committee, but other members of the Common Council regarding the policy. I had sent an email last week with some thoughts around the policy, so we can talk about that. So I think, Art, you had a question about the law?
I was looking at the law, and give me 1 second. Let's get back to where I was. So, give me 1 second, guys. All right.
So while Art is looking through that, Crystal, I just want to confirm, when I looked at this, I guess when we got it last time, and compared it to the New York State law, it appears to be completely consistent with what New York State's law requires, correct?
Yes, it's designed to be that way. You're talking about the policy or the actual law itself?
No, we're talking about the law. We're going to talk about the policy next. We're
Yeah.
talking about the law.
It is, yes, it's designed to be consistent with New York state law.
Yeah, I didn't see anything in comparing the two that I had questions on with regard to the law. I do have questions on the policy.
Under Crystal, under B4,
Hold on, let me get there. Okay, yep.
it's saying, it's referencing teleconference. Are we intentional on that? That the standard way of participating is by video conferencing, but.
Oh, yeah, no, I should change that to video conference.
Okay,
Yep. Yeah.
sorry, I put on my lawyer hat for 3 minutes today, and that's what
No, that's good.
And Crystal, I had a question for you about teleconference as well, because I don't believe anything changed in the New York State law regarding teleconference. But one of the questions that came up in terms of policy relates to teleconference.
Yeah, it did not change with respect to teleconference. And as I was going through the fact sheet that was issued by the Committee on Open Government, I think that was circulated to the committee. They are not, technically teleconference is not permitted. So there's no exceptions that I've seen that speak to exceptions for disability. So it's the language in the law is that the members need to be seen, which means that you should not be attending and cannot be attending with your video off either.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that was the only question I want to talk about. So now, yeah.
So we're saying that if you're an individual with a disability whose assistive technology precludes the use of video,
Right.
that is no longer permitted under this law.
It was never permitted. There was never any provision for joining by teleconference. And I think that is something that, I don't know, Crystal, if that can be taken back, but it came up within the context
Absolutely.
of somebody whose ability to participate based on visual impairment includes the use of video conference, and that really is a problem.
Yeah, no, I understand that. So I'm gonna have to dig. I didn't get a chance today to dig a little bit further into that. I didn't see any exceptions, and it was pretty clear in the Committee on Open Government guidance on it that they were not allowing teleconference. I believe that the reason for that is that there is supposed to be, again, complete transparency in this process. So you want to make sure the public needs to see who else may be in the room, essentially, with the members. To whatever extent possible. That's always been an issue with these video conferencing type platforms. But I'm going to dig a little bit further in to see about, ADA qualifications on this and accommodations with respect to this law. And it could be something where I could just call and get an informal opinion too on the committee on something from that, like that.
Yeah, I would like that. I think it's important that we design these things to be inclusive.
Okay.
The other question that I had was on B2. We don't really define what a significant or unexpected factor is. It's in the policy.
And that's where it's supposed to be, is in the policy.
Okay.
It's not nailed down here. It's including but not limited to in the law.
Okay.
And that actually was where I wanted to go.
That's in the video conferencing policy draft.
Anyone else got questions on the law? Ryan, any questions on the law?
None.
Ronnie? Yeah. So I think getting to the policy, the main area, and I'm just going to run through the thoughts that I had. I didn't edit this and send it around because I thought it would be better if we all brought our own thoughts to the table. The main area of concern here was the paragraph regarding extraordinary circumstances, video conference participation. So there were two distinct issues here. And Crystal, we talked about this a little, about the description of, in the third paragraph, the description of extraordinary circumstances, which include disability, illness, caregiving responsibilities, or any other significant or unexpected factor or event which precludes the member's physical attendance at a meeting. Such significant unexpected factor may include vacation and periods of work from home. So that clause, such significant unexpected factor, appears to refer to other significant or unexpected. And I think we'll give you draft language on cleaning that up a little bit. But I think if we write this in such a way that we have a set of circumstances that are related to any health-related issue or disability, whether that be the member or family member or a disability issue. That's one cluster of circumstances. And the second cluster of circumstances would be travel related to vacation or work. And so if we keep those clean, we can then talk about the limits and to which type of meeting it applies. So one thing as I was going through this, am I correct that the informal meeting does not require a quorum?
Well, you're not voting on, you're not voting on anything.
So one thing I was thinking about looking at this was that we should organize it in terms of meetings that require a quorum. If a member cannot attend and has to video conference for any of the disability reasons or health-related reasons, then there is no limit on that particular set of circumstances. If it's a quorum required meeting and they are absent due to travel or vacation, that's where we would have some limits when a quorum is required. And one of the issues raised by a member of the committee, I think in our last meeting, the rationale for that would be that without limits, a couple of members of a committee might have to always be present and never be able to take leave because of the quorum issue, right? So, and the third tier of this.
Well, if I could just pause for a second, that could still be an issue even when you don't need a quorum, because you still need to have a physical presence for the public to attend.
But I haven't talked about the non-quorum ones yet. I'm just talking about the quorum situation. So in those meetings that require quorum, it seems to me that it should also be separated by committee. So if somebody is on 2 or 3 committees and they are traveling or whatever, and there's a limit, let's just say for now that limit is 4, that they could have a limit of 4 on the Common Council meeting. That does not apply to the limit of 4 on the Technology Committee or on Legal Committee. Each one is evaluated separately. That was something that I'd like to hear what people think about. We'll talk about non-quorum in a minute. But what do people think about that?
I think that makes sense, personally.
Sorry?
I think that makes sense, personally.
Because if you're away and like you have 2 meetings.
If you're away for 2 weeks and you're on 3
and it's
committees,
1
those
week,
2
and then
weeks,
that's
you
all
used up your whole.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense.
Right. And it also addresses the question of quorum and fairness because, you know, they're separate events. Does anyone else have any concerns about that? Brian?
No, I'm for whatever policy is going to make it the most flexible, just personally, given my travel schedule. So,
Yeah,
Same.
So
I
the
would,
next,
I would
the next
also
thing,
just, the
right,
next thing that I
is the
would,
limits.
the limits, which
Yeah.
I think we, Ryan and myself, both travel a lot for work, and, you know, I am not quite sure how we phrase this out. I fully understand. We don't want to be placing an unfair burden on people to show up for these quorum meetings. Something that I was thinking about last meeting is that we do have a provision in there that says, in the case of, you know, an additional unexpected circumstance, including a work-related travel or a health-related emergency, you can submit it to the camp council, you know, and any objections can be raised. I think, like, realistically, no one's going to object, but I think that, you know, it disincentivizes people taking advantage of that because you have to stand up for it in public and say, okay, I have to travel for this. And, like, you know.
So the only thing I would disagree with on that is that we need to take all the health-related things off the table.
Yeah,
because they need to be without damage.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say, like, in the event of an unexpected work-related circumstance, additional days can be requested, you know.
Additional,
but
once you hit a limit. That
once you
means-
hit the limit, an additional day can be requested, but has to be subjected to the approval of the the committee, you know,
So at the moment, the meetings we're talking about are basically monthly meetings,
or not what.
right? They're basically monthly meetings,
Yeah.
once we think of them as a discrete set of meetings. So 4 would mean that 4 months of meetings you could be out. Is that,
1/8 of your term.
Yeah,
is that a reasonable number? It's 4 per year. No, it's
not
4.
1/8 of your term,
It's 1/3, it's 33% of the year.
again, yeah, I mean,
Is that reasonable? Is 5 more reasonable?
I think that so long as we have this provision that, like, in the case if you're really asking for more days because you're working, I mean, sometimes I go away for 2 months at a time, you know, and I
Right,
want to
right.
still be here, but I'll be here for
Right.
10 months of the year, and these 2 months, I'll
Right.
be gone, you know, and so I think so long as we allow for that, you know, it's less the limit and more just that there is a flexibility in the case of like truly extenuating circumstances. Yeah,
So we can put language in there that says it's 4, but in the event that an exception needs to be made, that.
subject to the approval of the.
Ryan, how do you feel about that?
Can you repeat it? Because you were all speaking over each other, which made it a little bit difficult to hear.
I was just saying that we say for now, the limit is 4 per year per committee. But in the case of a work-related circumstance,
Qualification.
work-related qualification, there can be exceptions subject to the approval of the appropriate committee. So just essentially like we disincentivize anyone taking advantage of this because you actually have to face your colleagues and explain why you're going to be missing. So hopefully that's just a nice check and balance for preventing abuse of the law.
I would say yes, so long as that the submission is made at, within a certain period of time in advance. So for example, I know that I'll be traveling for work next week. And tonight, Tom is going to get exactly what meetings I may or may not be able to make because of my schedule. And I think it should be subject to the way that we have to post documentation, right? Like it can't be 5 minutes before. I think we should need to be doing it at least anywhere between 72 and 24 hours so that there's ample notice, not just here, but Crystal, I mean, if in this instance, I travel to San Francisco from work, the public is more than welcome to join me at my location if they want to get on a plane and venture out there. But it would then behoove that everybody has access to know where people are dialing in from in advance.
I think we are required to say where we're calling in from actually, under the law.
The one thing that I would just add to that is instead of having it approved by the committee or the council, I would go with the chair because you don't want to be in a situation where you actually need like a vote as in an approval. And especially because you would expect this to be on fairly short notice days as opposed to a month in advance. So I would put it with the chairperson of that, committee or council.
Mark Frick, permanently denied. No.
And the only other thing, Ryan, that I would say, I'm looking at a circumstance, say, where you have your travel scheduled and so forth, right? And in a work situation, and you've hit your limit of 4, and then you're notified, which happens back to you and I back in the day when I was able to leave my home. You're notified by your client the day before that you've got to be on site the next day. So those things happen. And I think rather than putting a time limit on it, there is language in the law that says, or in the policy, where practicable. I think we just, 72 hours or as early as practical would be good, because in an emergency situation, you may not have more than 24 hours notice to get to go.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Personally, I would be okay with like 72 hours if that's,
I've had circumstances where I was told, oh, you're going to such a place tomorrow.
yeah, emergency vacations.
Okay, so we're good on the limits. We're good on doing it by committee, separate committee. We're going to have an exception clause in there, right? So now we need to talk about the non-quorum meetings. So one very important reason for having these limits was so that no, 1 or 2 members of the committee would always have to be the people on site. So in the non-quorum circumstance, and Crystal, you were speaking to this a few minutes ago. Why do we need to have a limit on, and bear in mind, you can only teleconference if you meet one of the criteria, leaving health out of it because that's going to be unlimited. but it would have to be for unavoidable travel for work or for a scheduled vacation. Those are the only reasons. It's not like I could decide that I want to sit in my house across the street rather than come to the meeting. You have to have a reason for video conferencing. So what is the rationale for putting limits on meetings where there's no quorum required?
Well, you still need to have,
Yeah, technically you can't have the meeting if you don't have the quorum.
well, and you still need to have a physical presence. You're still going to have this issue where you're going to put a burden potentially on certain members to continuously appear in person to allow for there to be a public forum for the public to attend.
Right, but I'm talking specifically about meetings where a quorum is not required.
And I understand that, but you still need to have a public forum for that meeting. You still need a place. So you're still going to need members of your committee or council to be present. So it's the same exact rationale that you have for all of the other meetings.
Yeah, we're in.
Okay, all right, that clarifies that, so that's fine. So we won't make that distinction. Does everybody agree with that? Gareth, you're looking at doubtful.
No, I think it's fine.
Okay.
I have a question. The locations, little paragraph there, it says
Are you in the policy now?
in the policy right there, since we're still discussing it. Meeting location shall be within the US. I mean, that seems pretty broad, right? I mean, are we not, wouldn't it be better just to say within city limits or something? The second
yeah.
paragraph for the video conferencing was, I mean, like, to leave it open for, are we foreseeing a circumstance?
That's the physical meeting location.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, are we as a council
Well, it
ever
kind of
holding a
doesn't-
meeting outside of the
it's-
city?
Well, it also is contradictory to what follows, which is,
Yeah.
at the end of that paragraph, that the public's allowed to, it's a quorum meetings of common council, are physically present at City Hall, and the public is allowed to attend that meeting or location, or a quorum of members of the common council are participating by a video conference, but from different locations such as Hudson Library and County Office. So that's actually really restricted to within the city of Hudson because the public have to be able to attend.
Yeah, I think so.
Actually, that does not limit it. It just gives an example of how you could have multiple different locations open to the public. But yeah, absolutely. You want to, and again, I grabbed, this was taken, I know that the IDA has, I took this initially from the IDAs, and then it was tweaked a little bit based on other ones. So if you want to limit US to City of Hudson, there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, also,
could say
maybe I'm
county
misunderstanding.
county.
Is this the meeting location for anybody that's
It's the physical location.
physical location, or let's say, Ryan's giving an example. Is it setting a limit for Ryan's physical location or our physical location? That-
The quorum physical
It's the
location.
physical location
Okay.
of the public.
Yeah, where the public's going to attend.
Right, yeah, I don't see any reason why city meeting should take place anywhere else other than the city, at least the main location. As long as it's for the main location of the meeting and not the traveling members.
I don't see why it would.
But there's no restrictions on where
There's no restriction on where you are
you can video conference
Right.
from.
That's kind of why I wanted to
Okay,
That's.
make
really
sure
important.
that's what the language is saying, because,
Yeah.
vacation, why should we be, if we are.
You must
able-
vacation in Columbia County.
Yeah. If it is vacation or travel for
You
work, I
can
don't want it to
only
be
join
limited.
remotely from cloud.
And the other thing that I wanted to kind of ask about is, so we're talking about all these rules
Sorry,
and.
before we leave that, so
Sorry,
we want to change that US language to say within the city of Hudson.
It doesn't really hurt.
We need to qualify what
Yeah.
meeting location we're talking about, right?
It's the location where the public can attend. So we'll clean this up a little, but when we clean this up, do we also want to make that language that the meeting location has to be within the city of Hudson?
I don't think that we need this because it's saying the quorum of the members of city council board must complete, city hall. Oh, I see. Sorry.
So she's
Got it.
saying, Chris is saying that's an example. When we could say that all meetings have to be within the city of Hudson.
If the whole point of this open meeting
For the
law
public.
is to make sure the public has access, it should be within
The city of
the
Hudson.
city of
I
Hudson.
think so.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Any objections on this? We're gonna change that to City of Hudson. Okay. So, any other questions on the policy?
The other thing that I kind of, wanted to lead towards is, we're talking about limits and everything, and it is going to be a city law. Now, what is the enforcement mechanism if someone for sure
This is a-
abuses it in
this
the
is a
future?
Policy now, though.
Well,
All of the limits are all in the policy now.
at the same point, if it is just a city policy, what is the enforcement mechanism? Is it like
Well, if you,
before the council votes you off the council? I'm kind of.
yeah, it would be some procedure where you would have to come up before the council. And maybe,
Right.
and
Or,
Instead of
you know, realistically,
out.
you could be denied from appearing
true too.
remotely. So your request could just be disapproved.
Right.
And then you would be absent from that meeting.
Yeah, I think that should be, is that, I mean, maybe I missed it. Is that kind of clearly specified in the policy?
I don't know that it's that spelled out, but we can certainly add it in.
We have a rule about missing meetings. It's either in the bylaws or in the charter, the code. I think it's in the bylaws.
Okay.
I'll check.
So it would basically fall back on, like, if you're denied, you're not attending, you basically go back to the main rule that says if you miss this many meetings, you are in danger of whatever.
Correct, that's
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. We can clarify that. Anything else?
So far, it's
So what we will do with this is I will work on making some revisions to this and send it to the committee and to Crystal. And then this
I
will
have-
go, yeah.
Sorry, one
yeah,
other thing. So, this is regarding the notice of meetings and the posting of the locations where we're video conferencing from.
What page are you on? Oh, there it is. I
On
got it.
notice of meetings,
Last
right?
paragraph, yeah.
Yep. So we're specifying in this document that it's at least 24 hours prior to the meeting. Oh, to the extent possible.
Yeah.
Practical. Okay, never mind, sorry.
And that was why I was saying if you have an emergency situation, we've got language like that. So I'll make some edits, I'll circulate it to this group, Crystal, and to the full common council, so that now then we can present it to the council and people can look at it and see what they think, see if it meets everybody's needs.
Are we sticking with the 4 limit? Because I think that was.
4 with the possibility of an exception,
Okay.
and the 4 applies to each individual meeting. It's not 4 in total.
If we're, I don't know if this is the right forum for this question, but we're specifying here that we're currently using Zoom. I'm a big fan of Zoom, but I'm not a big fan of how we need to always make sure that we have the right account or the right person physically here. It's like a cluster every other meeting to try to get the meeting up and running. Right? So we need to get like a real big boy Zoom account and not like the freebie or whatever where we're.
We pay $45 a month for free users. If we need to increase that number, then that's up to the council.
Do you feel like we need to? Is this a problem that's only existing in my head? 'Cause
What is the problem existing in possibly in your head?
The problem of starting up Zoom meetings, if, for example, I'm not here, or Shadeen's not here.
it just seems a little.
What are you proposing?
I don't know if they're,
It's not exactly.
so I don't know if the answer might be, is all of the council business meetings done using Tom's credentials? Does Tom have as president? Or something like that, like,
Or why don't we have a device that's dedicated for the city use and that lives in the city hall that we can access regardless of.
we can also worry about this in the tech. There's a whole committee.
Yeah, maybe we can
dedicated to
refer
this
this to
problem.
ourselves in the tech.
Okay, yeah, it seems like we're committing to using Zoom as a platform based on this, like currently Zoom, get it, but we need to like make sure that we're, really using it and not like, a janky version.
In the legalese sense, I think currently Zoom doesn't preclude not using anything else. It just.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Currently Zoom is unnecessary. If the sentence could end that Will you
Currently subscribed by the
subscribe by the common council
Yeah,
period?
that's,
And just be
I would not.
agnostic.
Yeah, I would
about
strike, I
what's
would
in-
strike it.
There's
No
no
need for it.
notice.
All right. Anything else? Okay, so, we received from Crystal, a number of documents, around local laws. There was something on the lodging tax as well. So honestly, I've kind of been, I think everybody else has been very busy the last day and a half. And did not have any opportunity to read through all of these. So Crystal, can you orient us to this so that at our next meeting, we can review and discuss? I'm gonna try and go into, I didn't download them, so.
And Crystal, as you do, if you can just say which one you're on, that would be great.
Yeah, where were these sent?
These were sent to our email at 7:27 a.m.
They came,
Margaret.
I received them yesterday afternoon directly from Crystal. And Crystal, just a little thing,
Oh,
I think it might be helpful whenever you're sending anything to the legal committee, if you just include everybody on the committee.
Sure.
Because I was working late last night and I didn't see it until I logged on this morning. I sent it out to everybody. But I mean, just go to where this is. So, which one are we going to look at first?
I am going to start with the easy one, which is entitled "A Local Law to Amend the Hudson City Code references to the City Planning Commission."
That's
I'm
not the
assuming
electronic name.
that's 05-23-22.
Sorry, yep.
Planning.
Yeah, planning
Yeah,
commission.
sorry, the planning committee, yes, that was correct. Now, these were all prepared by Cheryl Roberts. She did a lot of research and work on certain changes that were going to be required. And I know she worked with the, received some informal opinions as well, or discussions with the AG's office on this. So with respect to the Planning Commission, apparently the charter was amended some time ago to remove a planning commission and replace it with a planning board. But not all of the references in the charter were changed at that time. And what this local law does is it goes through the charter and the code, and it changes wherever there's a reference to the planning commission, and it replaces it with planning board.
I don't think we need, because most of us have not had time to read through all of these. I think probably I would recommend that once we know what we're supposed to be looking at here, we'll take it back, we'll look at it, and then we'll discuss. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah, that works for me. I mean, I've got a couple of questions mulling, but I want to do my due diligence before I ask them.
Okay. So then the next local laws, they all affect each other. We're looking at the local law that amends it's 05-23-22 final local law amends C2-1 public officers.
Yep.
Also the 5-24-22, the local law amending Article 9 of the charter, and then the one expanding the residency requirements. So there were some issues with that came to light with respect to the fact that the corporation counsel or a legal advisor, most cities, they call them corporation counsel. In Hudson, they call it a legal advisor. That position, whether that position truly is a public officer, whether it's not a public officer, that position should be a public officer for a variety of reasons, mainly because they have the ability to prosecute certain actions on behalf of the city, which you would want to be a public officer to be able to do. So what has happened is that, first of all, there was the residency requirement, which limited the ability to get a legal advisor or a corporation counsel to that 15-mile radius within the city. Well, the city of Hudson has limited attorneys available within it. So it really limits the ability of the city to be able to fill that position of legal advisor. And that's where there is an expansion. And this came through Cheryl Roberts discussing this with the mayor and what would work well for his office on this. And that's where they've agreed with an expansion to county limits as opposed to 15 miles within the city to allow for a greater pool of attorneys to be able to fill that position. It also makes a point to make sure the legal advisor, which was a title that was changed, I guess, with Civil Service Commission, but not necessarily in the charter, is now specified as the legal advisor for the city in the charter, as opposed to just the civil service title, and that it is a public officer for the city. So all those local laws specify that. At the same time, what they also do is there were other officers or, positions in the city that should have been deemed a public officer because of the duties they perform, such as code enforcement officer, the assistant code enforcement officer, and well, those were the only other two: legal advisor, code enforcement officer, and assistant code enforcement officer. Those are now included in the definition of public officer. And that's what that local law C2-1, that amendment, which is an amendment to the definitions of public officers in the charter.
So
That makes sense.
Can we just look at that for a second?
Yep. And I sent one of the emails that I sent kind of itemized these. I know you guys didn't get a chance to really go through it.
I forwarded your email.
Yeah, but it does go through what some of these differences are in which laws are affecting which.
So with these definitions of public officer, then this goes hand in hand with the residency requirement that's expanded to Columbia County.
It does, because it'll expand the residency requirement to the entire county as opposed to that 15-mile radius.
The residency requirement is specific to the legal advisor, not the other officers.
Public officer.
All the
Yes, and
officers.
hold on, I'm gonna go back and I apologize because I didn't draft these. I don't know them like the back of my hand. So I just want to go and double check on that one. Here, hold on. Here I am.
And the one that says residency, actually the title of it, Crystal, is expand residency requirement for legal advisor.
Yeah, the expansion of the residency is just for the legal advisor. So the public officers otherwise still have that city of Hudson 15-mile radius. Legal advisor is now the entire county. And that, my understanding was because of it can be so hard to find an attorney to fill that position within those limitations.
I don't think we have that issue with the other
I think what we're
officers.
more concerned about is the non-legal advisor public officers, is the question that I'm hearing. Is that right?
Well, I think Crystal has clarified that there is no residency requirement changes happening for the other officers, right?
There's not, yes, there's not. They're going to remain the same.
Now, obviously, Crystal, we're gonna have to go back and read all this and think it through. So we, in our next conversation, we'll probably have a lot more questions. I know Ryan had some questions.
Yeah.
The third one that, let's see, we looked at, planning commission amendment that we talked about, legal advisor. We haven't talked about amending. Have we talked about Article 9 of Charter, where a legal advisor retained counsel?
So, well, that's where the name change happened. So we're now making sure that legal advisor, which is actually the title that the city's using, is now in the charter as a position, and that the other retained counsel are essentially not going to be the public officer. So you've got your legal advisor, which is appointed by the mayor, which is going to be your public officers. And then you've got your contract attorneys, such as myself, the planning board attorney. They're not public officers. They are not subject to the residency requirements.
Well, I'm not talking about, we have a document here, 52422, final local law, amending Article 9 of Charter, where a legal advisor retained counsel. Is this about changing language?
Yes, it changed it so that it specifies that for the legal advisor, so that the mayor has the authority to appoint a legal advisor. That is essentially your corporation counsel. It was not that specific before. Now it's in line with the civil service title that is associated with that position.
And then I think there was one other, Crystal, that you had sent about the lodging tax.
Well, the lodging tax is set to expire. So we have, the city has to renew the lodging tax or, reapprove pass it again. The lodging tax. So what you have right now is the revised lodging tax based on all of the amendments that have taken place in the last 3 years. So this is essentially, it should be the same. I mean, those are the only changes, are just making sure that it encompasses all of the amendments that were already adopted by the council over the last 3 years. So when the lodging tax gets put in place again on December 1st, it is in the form that the council had, as amended by the council over the last 3 years. Now, the issue on this one too is that technically,
where are we supposed to be seeing
I'm
this?
not seeing it
It
anywhere.
was, I didn't attach it with all of the documents. It was one of the, I forwarded 2 emails to you from Crystal. One had these various documents and then one just had the lodging tax.
I do not have the lodging tax.
Let me try and find out.
Yeah, I wasn't able to find anything in our emails related to the lodging tax. Neither from Crystal nor from Margaret.
Crystal, is it possible for you to pull that up and share your screen or to email it to us?
yeah, I can forward it to the committee. I could forward the email from yesterday over to everyone. I just have to get everyone's email addresses populated. Give me 1 second. And this is not something that can be acted on anytime soon, actually, because the New York State has to allow for, authorize, and I think the council's aware of this already, authorize the city to pass this tax, adopt this tax. And what's happened so far is you've got the Senate that has approved the bill, you've got the Assembly that's approved the bill, but it has not been delivered to the governor yet. So technically, the authority for the city to adopt it starting December 1st can't happen until the governor signs the bill into law. So right now you can, look at this, it can be referred over to the council to, start looking at, but it actually cannot be adopted by the city yet. I am expecting that the governor is going to sign it in the fall.
I have just forwarded it to you all.
We could do the work and have it ready so that
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
We can't do anything on it yet.
trigger.
But I think the main thing here is that since these came in, and Ryan, I know you had a hard stop. Since these came in so late, we need time to read them, digest them, and then, so for our next council meeting, we will be producing the edits to the policy.
For our next common
actual
council?
common council. meeting.
Common
I'd
council.
like to get that in front of the common council so that everybody can take a look and give their input. And we can explain, our rationale on what we're doing. And at our next legal committee meeting, we'll look at these documents that Crystal has introduced tonight.
So who's working on the edits? Okay, all right. Just wanted to
I've been
make sure.
taking notes. And I've also talked to a number.
No, I heard a we, so I just wanted to make sure that,
It wasn't the
if
royal
it is we, then
it was we.
Yeah, the royal we.
Yes, well, exactly. Okay, so I think with that, I don't have anything else. Does anyone else have anything they want to bring up? Anything from the public? Okay. So with that, we have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Okay, thank you all.
I would have thought Ryan would have been all over that.